Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's Christmas episode of Us Kate. Yeah, we're so close now, and by the time this gets released, it'll be like nearly it'll just perfect Christmas timing.
Yeah.
And Kate and I were just talking about I was probably just talking. She was probably similar about our past and how Christmas time for me. I was telling Kate was like a bit. I was excited but stressed because food really ruled me, and I would restrict hard, came up to the holidays, and I would think, oh, I'm just going to binge, I'll binge and I'll drink. And then I would make my New Year's resolution. And that was going to be going to cut out the alcohol. I'm going to get, do the clean eating. I'm going to stick to it this time. I'll just lose all the weight that I put on and it'll be fine. And, if you're a woman and you're watching this and that is you, then I'm telling you right now, and this probably sounds harsh, is that you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You will, because ask yourself, how many years is this, that cycle repeated itself for 15 years for me, pretty much. What about you? Hey, what were you like?
Well, I think I started my dieting around 15. So it started to shift around 38. So yeah, I mean, I got you by about 3 years or
No, more than that.
I mean, it was 23 years probably for me. Yeah. I mean, with a lot, I mean, I'm about 10 years older than you. So I got you there. You found all this a lot quicker than I did. So, yeah, but it was that cycle. And, what we already know is that 98% of diets fail. They certainly fail if you use them as a New Year's resolution because, you're into that mentality and it becomes a mentality that you're trying to resist eating certain foods that you should probably be eating, but not just overeating and so forth. And we've talked about this. I mean, Christmas time is a great time to set yourself up for drinking, eating a lot more, and then binging, and then trying to not to gain weight. But what? I mean, we already know that the average person gains 5 to 10 pounds during the holidays. We all, again, we also know that the average person or the average diet doesn't work and it fails. So, I mean, what are we learning from all this? What do most people do? But they keep doing it, right? You did it for 15, I did it for 23 years. And it was quite stressful. And, because you are doing that cycle and what you start to, it does not work. And it actually creates more stress, more harm to your body. And of course, the longer you do it and the older you are, the harder it is to diet that food off of you. And that's why most people, as they get older and so forth, just gaining weight. So times you're 40 or 50, you've got 20 or 30 pounds on you, and that didn't happen overnight. That was from years and years of repetitive eating, dieting, binging, and so forth. And a lot of it occurs during the holiday season with the thought that come January 1, this year it'll be different.
I think too, the fitness industry really has a lot to answer for as well, because they set women up, you see all these advertisements, the New Year shred, or, the New Year's resolution, or it's okay, it's all these advertisements for 12-week challenges. And, it's really interesting. We do our weekly live trainings and, we have our marketing and we have our webinars, and I get a lot of emails from women, and again, I think it's the fitness industry has set them up to be like this, is that they, so how much is this 12-week program? And I'm like, well, one, it's not 12 weeks because no one can ever get to where they want to be in 12 weeks. It's just not possible. Not only one, because most women have, like us, fucked their bodies for years doing the dumb diet. So it's you can't undo 23 years of damage in 12 weeks. But two, I think a lot of it as well is that retraining your brain, to think differently.
I think, and that was probably the hardest battle for me, because I can follow and eat certain foods, but it was the brain, because, our brains have certain neural connections, and if we keep having these certain patterns, and, I did it for 23 years, I mean, those connections are deep within my thought patterns. And so to kind of restructure that or unlearn those patterns took a lot of years. And even when I was doing this and having success, I would still mentally go back to these old thoughts of, I should probably be starting to do some cardio right now, and I should cut this and cut that. When things weren't happening as fast as I would have liked them to happen, because this isn't a linear journey per se. It's not like diets where you just start losing. It just doesn't happen like that. You might either stay stable, you might gain a little bit, You might gain a lot depending on what you're doing. And then, you know, you kind of stabilize and things start to work better for you. You've kind of restructured your body and it now kind of work better and lose weight in a healthy way and not in a stressed way that we all used to do for so many years. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the brain connection to all of this is quite strong. And I think that's why we continue to keep doing the same diet over and over again, even though, like, again, we know that it doesn't work. You know, they repackage it in a different way, whether it's 12 weeks or fast or rapid or whatever terms they like to use that pull you in, or they get a celebrity endorsement, or, you know, whatever it is that they keep doing, it works. I mean, that's why it's $1 billion industry, you know, but is it working if everyone's obesity still rising? We're still getting sicker, but we're spending billions of dollars now that we didn't used to do 40 years ago with a sicker, fatter society. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You know,
it's crazy. And they don't too. I think, like, you know, we will work a lot on like people's, like, helping them with their mindset and their thinking, because, you know, a lot of women will go so hard and go, I have to be perfect. And then they have a little micro failure, they hit a roadblock, and they've always just given up and going, oh shit, well, I couldn't do it, so I failed again at this diet. And, you know, even in our programs, women will still fail, even though the food is great and the training's good. And, you know, like probably in yours as well. And I think it's trying to prepare them and show them that the failures are part of the journey, and that imperfect progress is better than stopping. Because it's like people, you know, I want to get there quicker, but if you stop, you don't get there at all.
Yeah. And again, like, and this is a new mentality for people to understand, because they're not getting the, like, so-called success that they used to get before with like quicker weight loss or whatever it is they thought that was bringing them success, you know. And again, especially as you get older, it becomes more challenging. And so if you're starting a program like this in your 40s and 50s, it's going to be a mental struggle for you, and that we understand that, right? And to this, it's like you have to persist. And that's why it's important to try to understand the real physiology behind this and how your body functions optimally, so that you can understand that, like, hey, I really do need to support my body with healthy sugars and this optimal fat and enough protein, because that's how my body runs best, versus just looking at the scale and saying, whatever, I've lost weight, so I'm now successful. Because we know that that doesn't work. We put focus on the wrong things. You know, that's why, like, you know, I know you focus on taking temperature and pulse and kind of how do you feel? How's your energy? How's your stool? How's your sex life? All of these physiological responses are more important than what does that scale say. And I'm not saying you can't weigh yourself. I mean, sometimes that does help people, and it's good to kind of know. But if that's your only means of measuring your success and not the other stuff, then you're probably going to get into some roadblocks and some failures, because, you know, there's so much more to understanding metabolism, how your body's functioning optimally, than what the scale is telling you.
I think too, like, because, you know, obviously we're right into the strength training, and, you know, we love lifting, and a lot of, I was listening to one of the girls on a sales call yesterday, and the lady was like going, oh, look, I've done Kitty's program for 2 weeks, like the trial. And I'm eating all the food and I'm feeling so much better, but I don't want to be bulky. Like, this weight training's making me bulky, you know, like I'm feeling bigger. And it's just so interesting, you know, like we focus so much on the weight rather than the body composition. So, you know, like I'm like 8 kilos probably now heavier on average than I was 4 years ago, but I look heaps better. I can eat way more food, you know, I can train heaps less. And it's like women, I think, forget that it's like, if you've got two females, both 75 kilos, one's 30% body fat versus one's 22, they're going to look a hell of a lot different. You know, and again, like we always go back to this, it's playing that long game. You know, this lifting is a skill. It's an art. It takes discipline. It takes practice. You know, like even I still learn. But I just love to be continually learning. And you can't expect that you're going to pick that up in 12 weeks. You know, I think.
Well, I think that's a good point. And I think that's a good point with anything. You know, even the best of the best are still learning, right? I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years now. And I learn something every single day. I mean, there's so much more to learn out there that we are trying to understand, especially when it comes to the body. We don't know everything. If we did, we would, you know, we would know a lot more to help people, but we don't. And the point of this is that there is this thing called individuality. So every person is a special unit depending on their circumstances, their beliefs, their history, their DNA, you know, what is available to them, you know, how they've lived their life. I mean, all of that has to be taken into consideration when looking at your health, which most diets do not do. You know, and that's why it's so imperative to kind of take that person individually and adjust that. You know, I mean, the good thing about this information is it can be slightly generalized in the fact that, you know, you need to eat these substances and to support yourself, but we still have to, you know, get the missing pieces in for each individual so that they can, you know, find their way in the sea of, you know, where, you know, everything is a little bit going to be a little bit different for them. So, I mean, and that's what, you know, science is all about, is finding what is going to be working and trying new things and seeing if that works for you. And if it doesn't, then trying something else and not saying, well, that didn't work, I'm going to stop. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Why did that not work? Right? If you're not doing well on dairy, why not? Like, what's happening? You need to find a different dairy, or maybe you're not ready for dairy right now. Some people aren't ready for dairy. You know, you got to get a little bit more healthier until you add it back in, or you need to go slower, or maybe you need to change the fat, or you just need to change the type, or whatever it is. You know, a failure to me is just saying you got to start asking more questions.
I think too, like, and we get this a lot, is I think I'm not saying you should never read or look at different opinions, because you should, but I think if you have too many people that you're following, and like, you go with a coach and go all in and do what they say. Like, look for someone, obviously, and like, use your fucking brain, of course. But I think, you know, so we have someone in the program that come in and they'll do stuff, but they do it for a month, and then like, oh, this isn't working. And then they go and read something about menopause and how, oh no, you need to take more estrogen. They get confused. But I'm like, focus on being consistent. You need to be consistent for longer. You know, like, for example, like, we're just training with this new powerlifting coach, and he's got a slightly different methodology. Like, I mean, it's similar strength training, but he's got a very specific methodology. And I went in and I was like, even because at the start he was making me do all this stuff, and I was thinking, oh fuck, this is like different to what I've been doing. But I was like, you are paying him. He has the results that you want. So just listen and believe in what he's saying and do it. And slowly, like, I squatted like 120, like, and it felt good. And I was like, oh, this is working. But you've got to believe, I think, and you've got to stop. You can't, if you constantly question, I'm not saying don't question, that's not the right word, because you should ask questions. But like we said before, if you constantly, like, it's like some people are looking for reasons for it not to work. I think sometimes. Like,
yeah, there is that component. And I think there is something to say with, I mean, if you're diving into like 3 different mythologies at one time, you know, you're like, okay, I'm investigating the vegetarian diet and the keto diet and this way all at once. Well, you're going to get cross information, and there's going to be different things that say different things. But this is one thing I will say to you though. Physiology doesn't change. And so if you actually understand physiology, then your path starts to be created a little bit more clearly, because when you actually look at how a healthy body runs and functions, there's basically not just one way, but a way to eat that would make more sense to you. And it's not keto or vegetarian.
Yeah.
But and I'm not saying you can't get results on those, because those diets can work under certain circumstances for certain people and be very beneficial depending on the person and their circumstances. And however, does that pertain to all healthy individuals to get optimal health? It doesn't. So there's just, you know, like I said, there's certain things that will work for certain people. And sometimes if you can get to a better health, you might want to change it and establish something different. And, you know, and like I said, I mean, and you're right when you sit there and say some people are just looking for reasons to not do stuff. Because they're starting to question every single thing that you're doing, and they're not doing anything though. Right. So here's the thing, you got to try stuff. You got to do it. You got to pay attention to your body and record and log and be consistent, like you always say. And then see if that is going to work. And if it doesn't mean it's failure. It just means, well, why isn't it working? What is happening? What's going on with you? And then kind of diverge, and then maybe you need to fix something over here first before you do that, and then come back to it.
And I think I really, you know, you touched on this before, and something that I always hammer home to people, I'm like, what is the diet that you can do that is going to give you the most optimal sleep, the best skin, the most pain-free and regular menstrual cycle, a high sex drive, good energy, stable mood, strong temperature and pulse, and you can maintain a normal level of body fat eating, I say, over 2,000 calories a day. Because obviously your calorie range and macro is going to depend on your activity levels and lots of other things. But it's like, whenever I meet someone who's doing keto or who's like vegan, and I know, look, I respect, because I've got some vegan friends and they're really like animals, like the animal cruelty. And I respect that. But it's like, the ones
Sure.
are like, well, this is so healthy. But when you ask them, like, there's a lady that I know and she takes antidepressants. Her menstrual cycle is horrendous. You know, I've watched her train and she shakes when she's training. Like, and I'm like, and her argument though is that this is healthy, that eating no meat is healthy. And I'm like, but what are you measuring it against? You know, I think like what you say, if you do that, because in our program too, like we all have really different diets. Like Mel and Craig have really sensitive digestion. So they've got a really narrow food list that they stick to that makes them feel really good and keeps their digestion, you know, function. Whereas I can just eat whatever. And, you know, like, but at the end of the day, it's like finding that the bubble foods for you that can give you all the nutrients that you need that make you feel good and sleep well. And I think when you look at these other diets, it's like I've never met anyone, or I haven't, that's come to me doing them and they sleep well, great digestion, like they're either eating fuck all calories to stay in shape and they're doing heaps of cardio. It's like, well, yeah, it works to be skinny, but that's it, you know? Yeah, it's just,
yeah, and it all depends on your age. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that can play into that, you know? I mean, when you're in your 20s or in 30s, you can get away with a lot more things, I believe, you know? And
absolutely.
And it also depends on and it also depends on some overall stress. I mean, I have some friends in Southern California. They eat a kind of vegetarian type diet, you know, with maybe a little fish, but you know, but they also don't work. You know, their day is consistent of they go to the gym and they go shop and they, you know, that's their day. It's very
that sounds like a nice life. Yeah.
It is. They go on vacation, you know, all the time. I mean, that is their life, right?
Yeah.
So their overall stress is minimized, you know, and so they could work out more. They can do all these other things because they don't have the amount of stress that maybe another human being would, right? It still doesn't mean that long term they might not have other issues, you know, with that diet. But I do think if you have super low stress in the rest of your life, you can tolerate a lot more beans and legumes and all of these other things, and you won't have as much irritation from them than if you know, are living a normal life where you have to deal with all these things, right? So would they still probably do better with removing those things and eating, you know, other foods? Possibly, right? I can't tell you for sure. I would say, you know, physiologically speaking, probably. But, you know, again, if they feel okay with that and the rest of their life is, you know, a wonderful holiday all the time, then do what you want, you know?
Which is not true for 98% of people. You know, like just even
sure.
a lady.
There's always outliers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in our Facebook page today, one of the girls did a live and she was just checking in, and she has a very stressful life, single mother, 3 kids, ex-partners of CUNT, like just really bad. And she was just saying how, like, you know, she works shift work and like just so much stress. But she's like, you know, look, I'm really grateful and I put good food into my body. It's like that most people have a lot of stress in their life, I think, you know. It's, you know, and therefore you need more nutrients, more energy, you know. You can't, and like you said, in your 20s, like because we're sort of thinking about whether or not we should have a baby, and, you know, because I'm like 38 in January. And I was just saying to Craig, I'm like, fuck, remember when we were like in our 20s, like I'd go out and party all night, take drugs, work all day, do that like the 3 nights in a row and be sweet. Now, one night of bad sleep and I'm so shit. Like, so I feel so shit, you know. I think, oh man, having a baby, I'll be so tired, you know. But, you know, you're right. When you're in your 20s, you can do all that dumb shit and you can recover. But the majority of women in our program are in their 40s. So what they used to do doesn't work anymore. And yeah, like you can't keep smashing your body like that. And again, going into Christmas, you know, like we were just talking about before, because we've tracked and measured our food and tested and we found what works for us, going into Christmas now, it's not even an issue. Like I didn't even think about it. Christmas Day, I'll just enjoy food. I might even have one drink, whereas previously I'd have 10 million drinks, binge, you know, put on 5 kilos. Whereas now it's not even an issue. now.